The stagecoach wheels kicked up dust along the rutted trail leading into Sierra City, Nevada, and Zara Mitchell pressed her face against the window, wondering if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. She had left everything behind in Philadelphia after the scandal that destroyed her reputation, after Marcus had publicly jilted her at the altar and spread lies about her character that made it impossible for her to hold her head up in polite society. Now, in the summer of 1883, she was heading toward a teaching position in a town she had never seen, hoping the West would offer her the fresh start she desperately needed. The landscape was nothing like the green hills of Pennsylvania. Here, the earth was painted in shades of gold and brown, with scattered sagebrush dotting the valley floor and mountains rising in the distance like sentinels guarding secrets. The air smelled different too, dry and clean, carrying the scent of juniper and something wild she could not quite name. Zara clutched her carpetbag tighter as the stagecoach rattled over another bump, sending her bouncing in her seat. When they finally rolled into Sierra City, her heart sank. The town was smaller than she had imagined, just a single main street lined with wooden buildings that looked like they were holding each other up. A general store, a saloon, a church with a crooked steeple, and a few other establishments she could not quite make out through the dust. The driver pulled the horses to a stop in front of what appeared to be a hotel, and Zara climbed down on shaky legs, her traveling dress covered in a fine layer of dirt. "You the new schoolteacher?" a woman's voice called out. Zara turned to see a middle-aged woman in a calico dress approaching, wiping her hands on her apron. "I'm Martha Henderson. My husband is the mayor. We were expecting you last week." "The stage was delayed in Carson City," Zara explained, trying to smile despite her exhaustion. "There was trouble with one of the horses." Martha looked her up and down with an expression that was not entirely welcoming. "Well, you are here now. The schoolhouse is at the end of the street, but you cannot stay there. We have not found proper lodgings for you yet. Most families are full up, and we need to make sure the arrangement is respectable." Zara's stomach dropped. "I was assured in the correspondence that housing would be provided, and it will be. Just give us a few days to sort things out. In the meantime, you will have to stay at the hotel, but I warn you, it is not fancy." Martha's tone suggested this was somehow Zara's fault. "Come along, I will show you to your room and then we can discuss your duties." The hotel room was indeed not fancy. It was barely larger than a closet, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a single window that overlooked the back alley. But it was clean, and after 2 weeks of travel, Zara was grateful for any place to rest. She unpacked her few belongings, changed into a fresh dress, and joined Martha downstairs. Over weak tea in the hotel's dining room, Martha outlined her expectations. The school served about 20 children ranging from ages 5 to 14. Zara would be responsible for teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and geography. The school term ran from September through May with a break for Christmas. Her salary would be $40 a month, paid by the town council. "We expect proper behavior from our schoolteacher," Martha said, her eyes sharp. "This is a respectable community. No drinking, no carousing, and absolutely no improper relationships with men. You understand?" Zara's cheeks burned. "Of course. I came here to teach, nothing more." "Good. You will take your meals here at the hotel until we find you a permanent situation, perhaps with the Reverend and Mrs. Cole if they have space." Martha stood, smoothing her skirts. "School starts in 2 weeks. That should give you time to prepare the schoolhouse and review the curriculum. Come by our house tomorrow at 10, and I will introduce you to some of the other ladies in town." After Martha left, Zara sat alone at the table, fighting back tears. This was not the welcome she had hoped for, but what had she expected? She was a fallen woman in the eyes of Philadelphia society, and apparently word traveled even to remote Nevada towns. She had to prove herself here, had to show these people that she was a capable teacher and a respectable woman, regardless of what they might have heard. The next morning dawned bright and hot. Zara dressed carefully in a modest gray dress with a high collar and walked to the schoolhouse. It was a simple one-room building with benches arranged in rows and a large desk at the front. The chalkboard was cracked, and the windows were so dusty she could barely see through them. She spent the morning cleaning, sweeping out months of accumulated dirt, and taking inventory of the supplies. There were few books, most of them worn and outdated, and only a handful of slates for the children to use. She was on her hands and knees scrubbing the floor when she heard footsteps on the porch. Looking up, she saw a man silhouetted in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. "Help you?" she asked, sitting back on her heels. The man removed his hat, revealing dark hair and eyes the color of a stormy sky. He looked to be in his early 30s, with sun-weathered skin and strong features. "I heard we had a new schoolteacher in town. Thought I would introduce myself. Nathan Rhodes. I have a ranch about 5 miles north of here." Zara stood, acutely aware of her disheveled appearance and the dirt on her dress. "Zara Mitchell. It is nice to meet you, Mr. Rhodes. Nathan, please." He glanced around the schoolhouse, his expression thoughtful. "Looks like you have your work cut out for you. This place has been empty since last spring when Miss Patterson left to get married." "I am managing," Zara said, though she felt overwhelmed by the task ahead. "Are you a parent? Do you have children who will be attending school?" "No, not yet. I am not married." He said it matter-of-factly without embarrassment. "But I believe in education. My parents made sure I could read and write, and I think every child deserves the same chance. If you need anything, supplies or help fixing up the place, let me know. I owe this town a debt." "That is very kind of you," Zara said, surprised by the offer. "But I would not want to impose." Nathan smiled, and it transformed his serious face. "It would not be an imposition. I mean it. This town needs a good teacher. We have gone through 3 in as many years." Before Zara could respond, Martha Henderson's voice rang out from the doorway. "Mr. Rhodes, I see you have met Miss Mitchell." Her tone was cool, disapproving. "Miss Mitchell, you should not be receiving gentlemen callers at the schoolhouse. It is not proper." "I was just introducing myself, Mrs. Henderson," Nathan said evenly, "and offering to help with repairs if needed." "That will not be necessary. The town council will handle any repairs." Martha stepped inside, positioning herself between Zara and Nathan in a way that was clearly protective or perhaps possessive. "Miss Mitchell has a meeting with the ladies' auxiliary this afternoon. She needs to prepare." Nathan replaced his hat, his expression neutral. "Of course." "Good day, ladies." He nodded to Zara. "Welcome to Sierra City, Miss Mitchell." After he left, Martha turned to Zara with a frown. "You would do well to avoid men like Nathan Rhodes." "He seemed perfectly polite," Zara said, confused by the hostility. "He may seem that way, but he has a reputation. His ranch is successful, I will grant him that, but he is too independent, too unwilling to follow the social conventions of decent society. He rarely attends church, and he has turned down every attempt to match him with suitable young ladies." Martha sniffed. "A man his age should be married with children by now. There is something not quite right about him." Zara wanted to point out that being unmarried at 30 was hardly a crime, but she bit her tongue. She could not afford to antagonize the mayor's wife, not when she was still on probation in this town. The meeting with the ladies' auxiliary was every bit as uncomfortable as Zara had feared. A dozen women gathered in Martha's parlor, examining her with barely concealed curiosity. They asked pointed questions about her background, her family, and why she had chosen to come west. Zara stuck to the story she had prepared. Her parents were deceased. She had no close family remaining in Philadelphia, and she wanted to make a difference in a growing community. She did not mention Marcus or the scandal. She did not mention the whispers that had followed her everywhere, or the way former friends had crossed the street to avoid her. Mrs. Cole, the Reverend's wife, seemed the kindest of the group. She was a small woman with graying hair and gentle eyes. "We are glad to have you here, Miss Mitchell. The children need stability and a good education. I hope you will find Sierra City to be a welcoming place." But Zara could see the reservation in the other women's eyes. She was an outsider and she would have to earn their trust. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Zara cleaned the schoolhouse from top to bottom, organized the meager supplies, and prepared lesson plans. She took her meals alone at the hotel, too tired and too anxious to seek out company. At night, she lay awake in her narrow bed, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the frontier town and wondering if she had made the right choice. On Saturday afternoon, she was at the general store buying chalk and writing paper when Nathan Rhodes walked in. He saw her immediately and tipped his hat. "Miss Mitchell, how are the preparations coming along?" "Well, thank you," Zara said, aware of the storekeeper watching them with interest. "I believe I will be ready when the term begins." Nathan selected a few items from the shelves, tobacco and ammunition and coffee, then joined her at the counter. "I meant what I said about helping. The schoolhouse could use some repairs. The steps are rotting and that roof will leak come winter." "I appreciate the offer, but Mrs. Henderson was quite clear that the town council will handle any necessary repairs." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Martha Henderson likes to control everything in this town, but the council moves slowly if at all. Those repairs need to be done now, before a child gets hurt." The storekeeper, a thin man with spectacles, cleared his throat. "He is right, miss. That building has needed work for months. The council keeps saying they will get to it, but they never do." Zara hesitated. She did not want to cause trouble, but she also did not want to be responsible if a student was injured. "If you are willing to do the work, Mr. Rhodes, I would be grateful, but I insist on paying you for your time and materials." "That is not necessary," Nathan began, but Zara cut him off. "I insist. I will not be indebted to anyone." She said it more sharply than she intended, but the words came from a place of hard-learned experience. She had been indebted to Marcus, had relied on his promises and his protection, and look where that had gotten her. Nathan studied her face, and she had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see more than she wanted him to. "All right, I will bring you an accounting of the costs, but I will not charge for labor. I am doing this for the children, not for profit." He was true to his word. The following Monday, he arrived at the schoolhouse with lumber and tools and spent the day replacing the front steps and patching holes in the roof. Zara tried to focus on her work inside, but she found her attention drawn to the rhythmic sound of hammering, to the occasional glimpse of Nathan through the window, his shirt sleeves rolled up and his face intent on his task. At noon, she brought him a cup of water from the well. "You should take a break. It is too hot to work straight through." Nathan accepted the cup gratefully, drinking deeply. "Thank you. I am almost finished with the steps. The roof will take another day or two." "You do not have to do this all yourself," Zara said. "Surely there are others in town who could help." "I do not mind the work. It gives me something to do besides stare at cattle." He smiled slightly. "Ranching is mostly hard work and long stretches of boredom. This is a nice change." Zara found herself curious about him. "How long have you had your ranch?" 10 years. I came out here after the war, looking for a fresh start. Worked as a cowhand for a few years, saved my money and bought my own land. Started with 50 head of cattle and built it up from there. Now I have about 500 head and 3 men who work for me. That must be quite an accomplishment, Zara said, building something from nothing. It has been worth it. I like being my own man, answering to no one but myself. He looked at her directly. What about you? What brought you to Sierra City? Zara's throat tightened. Like I told the ladies' auxiliary, I wanted to make a difference, to teach in a place where I was needed. That is the official story, Nathan said quietly, but I recognize someone running from something when I see them. I am not asking you to tell me your secrets, Miss Mitchell. I just want you to know that in my experience, the West is a good place for starting over. People out here do not care much about your past, as long as you are honest and you pull your weight. His words brought unexpected tears to her eyes. She blinked them back quickly. Thank you, that is kind of you to say. It is the truth. Nathan handed back the cup. I should get back to work. These steps will not fix themselves. Over the next few days, Nathan continued his repairs while Zara prepared for the opening of school. They fell into an easy pattern, greeting each other in the morning, sharing brief conversations during breaks, and parting ways in the evening. Zara found herself looking forward to his presence, to the quiet competence he brought to his work, and the way he treated her with respect, not pity or judgment. On Thursday afternoon, Martha Henderson arrived at the schoolhouse with 2 other women from the auxiliary. She stopped short when she saw Nathan on the roof, hammering new shingles into place. What is the meaning of this? Martha demanded. Miss Mitchell, I thought I made it clear that the town council would handle repairs. The repairs needed to be done before school starts, Zara said, keeping her voice steady. Mr. Rhodes generously offered his services and I accepted. The children's safety is my primary concern. Your concern should be for your reputation, Martha snapped. Having a man hanging around the schoolhouse day after day, it looks improper. People will talk. Let them talk, Nathan called down from the roof. The work is almost finished. 1 more day should do it. Martha's face flushed with anger. This is highly irregular. The council will hear about this. I am sure they will, Nathan said calmly, climbing down the ladder. And when they ask why I felt the need to do repairs that should have been handled months ago, I will be happy to explain. The 2 women locked eyes in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Martha turned on her heel. Come along, ladies, we clearly are not wanted here. She shot Zara a look of pure venom. You are making a mistake, Miss Mitchell, mark my words. After they left, Zara sank onto the steps, her hands shaking. I should not have let you help. I have made an enemy of the mayor's wife. Nathan sat beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. Martha Henderson has too much influence in this town, and she does not like when people do not follow her rules. But she cannot fire you without the council's approval, and the council knows we need a teacher. You will be fine. I hope you are right, Zara said. I cannot afford to lose this position. Can I ask you something? Nathan's voice was gentle. Why did you really come west? The truth this time. Zara took a deep breath. Maybe it was time to trust someone. Maybe keeping secrets was more exhausting than the truth. I was engaged to be married. A man I thought I loved, a man I trusted. 2 days before our wedding, he called it off. He told everyone I was morally corrupt, that I had been unfaithful, that I was not the woman he thought I was. None of it was true, but it did not matter. My reputation was destroyed. I could not get work, could not show my face in public without people whispering, so I left. I applied for positions as far from Philadelphia as I could get, and Sierra City was the first to accept me. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. That man was a fool and a coward to lie about you like that. Perhaps I was the fool for believing him in the first place. No, Nathan said firmly. Trusting someone is not foolish, breaking that trust is, and making sure you know the difference is important. His words touched something deep inside her, a wound she had thought would never heal. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. Nathan stood, offering his hand to help her up. You are going to do well here, Miss Mitchell. Give this town a chance to know the real you and they will come around. Most of them, anyway. The school term began on a bright September morning. 23 children filed into the schoolhouse, ranging from little Timmy Cole, who was barely 5 and still missing his front teeth, to Emma Sanders, a gangly 14-year-old who would likely be getting married within the year. Zara stood at the front of the room, her heart pounding, and introduced herself. The children were curious and mostly well-behaved. A few of the older boys tested her authority by talking during lessons and throwing spitballs, but Zara had been prepared for that. She had studied discipline methods and classroom management, and she quickly established rules and consequences. By the end of the first week, even the troublemakers had settled down. Teaching brought her a joy she had not expected. She loved seeing the children's faces light up when they grasped a new concept, loved hearing them read aloud with growing confidence, loved the questions they asked about the wider world beyond Sierra City. This was what she had been meant to do, she realized. Not marry Marcus and become a society wife, but make a real difference in young lives. The town's attitude toward her began to shift, slowly but noticeably. Parents stopped by to thank her for her patience with their children. Mrs. Cole invited her to Sunday dinner. Even some of the women from the auxiliary started to warm to her, though Martha Henderson remained coldly polite. Nathan stopped by the schoolhouse occasionally, always with a legitimate reason, to check on a repair or deliver supplies that someone had asked him to drop off. But Zara suspected he really came to see her, and she found herself watching for him, her heart lifting when she saw his horse tied up outside. One Saturday, in late October, he arrived with a wagon full of books. I wrote to a friend in San Francisco, he explained as he carried boxes into the schoolhouse. He works for a publishing company. These were damaged in shipping, so they were going to be thrown away, but he sent them to me instead. Thought your students could use them. Zara unpacked the boxes with trembling hands. There were dozens of books, primers and readers and history texts, some with torn covers or stained pages, but all perfectly usable. This is incredibly generous. The children will be thrilled. I remember what it was like to have just one book in our house when I was growing up, Nathan said. My mother's Bible. I read it cover to cover 3 times before I was 10, not because I was particularly religious, but because I was so hungry for words and stories. No child should be limited like that. You are a good man, Nathan Rhodes, Zara said softly. He looked at her and the air between them seemed to thicken. I should go. I have cattle to check on. Stay, Zara heard herself say. Just for a little while, we could organize these books together. Nathan hesitated, then nodded. All right. They spent the afternoon sorting through the books, discussing which would be appropriate for different age levels and how to protect them from eager, careless hands. They talked about literature and education, about their childhoods and their dreams. Nathan told her about growing up in Ohio, about fighting in the war when he was just 18, about the horrors he had seen, and the nightmares that still sometimes woke him in the night. Zara told him about her parents, both dead from typhoid when she was 16, about the aunt who had raised her after that with cold efficiency and no affection, about the loneliness that had made Marcus's attention seem like salvation. I thought he loved me, Zara said. I thought I was so lucky that someone like him, wealthy and handsome and respected, wanted to marry someone like me. I ignored the signs that something was wrong. The way he criticized what I wore, the way he wanted to know where I was every moment, the way he made me feel small. I told myself it was just his way of showing he cared. That is not love, Nathan said. Love should make you feel bigger, stronger, more yourself, not less. How do you know? You said you have never been married. Nathan smiled wryly. No, but I watched my parents together for 25 years before the fever took them. They were partners in every sense. They respected each other, trusted each other, built a life together. That is what I want if I ever find it, not something less. Zara felt something shift in her chest, a recognition that this man understood her in a way no one ever had. I want that too, she whispered. Nathan reached out and took her hand. His palm was calloused from work, warm and solid. Zara, I know you have only been here a few months. I know you are still finding your feet, but I need you to know that I care for you. More than I probably should, and if you are open to it, I would like to court you properly. Zara's breath caught. Part of her wanted to pull her hand away to protect herself from the risk of being hurt again. But a larger part, the part that was tired of being afraid, wanted to lean into this feeling to see where it might lead. I would like that, she said. But we should be discreet. I cannot afford another scandal. We will be as proper as you need us to be, Nathan promised. I am a patient man. From that day forward, their relationship deepened. Nathan came to town every Sunday after church, and they would walk together along the edge of town, always in sight of others but far enough away to talk privately. He told her about his ranch, the challenges of raising cattle in Nevada's harsh climate, the satisfaction of building something with his own hands. She told him about her students, the small victories and frustrations of teaching, the way she was starting to feel like she belonged in Sierra City. They attended the town's harvest festival together, causing a stir of gossip but not outright scandal. Nathan won the shooting competition and gave his prize, a hand-tooled leather belt, to Zara with a smile that made her blush. They danced together at the barn dance, a respectable distance apart, but Zara felt the warmth of his hand on her waist long after the music stopped. In November, Nathan invited her to visit his ranch. I know it is not proper for you to come alone, he said, but I thought maybe Mrs. Cole would agree to chaperone. I would like you to see my home, to understand what my life is really like. Mrs. Cole agreed readily, clearly pleased by the romance developing between the schoolteacher and the rancher. The following Saturday, she and Zara rode out to Nathan's ranch in his wagon, bundled against the cold wind that promised winter. The ranch was larger than Zara had imagined, with a sturdy house built of logs and stone, a big barn, several corrals and pastures stretching toward the mountains. Nathan's 3 ranch hands, Pete, Jim, and a younger man named Carlos, greeted them respectfully before making themselves scarce. Nathan showed them around with obvious pride, pointing out the improvements he had made over the years, the new well he had dug, the bunkhouse he had built for his men, the root cellar stocked with supplies for winter. The house itself was simple but well built, with a large kitchen, a sitting room with a stone fireplace, and 2 bedrooms on the upper floor. It is not fancy, Nathan said, but it is solid, built to last. It is wonderful, Zara said honestly. She could picture herself here, cooking in that kitchen, reading by that fireplace, waking up in those upstairs rooms. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Mrs. Cole proved to be a tactful chaperone, keeping them company during the tour but then settling in the kitchen with her knitting while Nathan showed Zara his workshop behind the barn. He made things in his spare time, he explained, furniture and wooden toys and anything else that needed fixing. I like working with my hands, he said, running his palm over a rocking chair he was building. There is something satisfying about taking raw wood and turning it into something useful and beautiful. Like what you are doing with this ranch, Zara said. Taking raw land and building a life. That is what I hope. Nathan set down his tools and turned to face her. Zara, I know it has only been a few months. I know by society's standards we should wait longer, but I am not getting any younger and I am tired of being alone. I want to share this life with someone. I want to share it with you. Zara's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Are you asking what I think you are asking? Not yet, Nathan said with a smile. When I ask you to marry me, it will be with a ring and a proper proposal. But I wanted you to see this place first, to understand what you would be getting into. Ranch life is hard. The winters are brutal and the work never stops. You would be isolated out here, miles from town. I have 3 ranch hands who would be around, so we would not be completely alone, but it is not the social life you are probably used to. Nathan, I have spent the last 6 months living in a hotel room and eating meals by myself. I am not looking for a social life. I am looking for a home. For belonging, for love. She stepped closer to him. I think I could find that here with you. Nathan's eyes were bright with emotion. You have already found it. I love you, Zara. I think I have loved you since the day you knelt on that schoolhouse floor, covered in dust and determined to make something good happen. I love you too, Zara whispered, the words feeling like both a confession and a liberation. Nathan pulled her into his arms, and she went willingly, resting her head against his chest and listening to the steady beat of his heart. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other, until Mrs. Cole's voice called from the house that it was time to head back to town. On the ride home, Mrs. Cole smiled at them both. I am so happy for you too. Nathan is a good man and you will make a fine rancher's wife, Zara. I hope so, Zara said. I do not know much about ranching. You will learn. Love and determination will carry you through the hard parts, Mrs. Cole patted her hand. And you will not be completely alone. There are other ranch families in the area and we will visit when we can. Plus, once you have children, you will be far too busy to feel lonely. Zara blushed, but the thought of children, of building a family with Nathan, filled her with warmth. Winter arrived early that year, with snow falling in late November and temperatures dropping below freezing. The schoolhouse was drafty despite Nathan's repairs, and Zara spent her days stoking the wood stove and trying to keep her students focused despite their cold fingers and runny noses. Several children caught colds and had to stay home, and Zara worried constantly about their well-being. Nathan came to town less frequently as the weather worsened. Ranch work did not stop for winter, and he often had to spend long days moving cattle to sheltered areas or breaking ice on water troughs. When he did make it to town, he looked exhausted, his face wind-burned and his hands chapped from the cold. I worry about you, Zara told him one Sunday after church. You work too hard. The cattle do not take care of themselves, Nathan said, but he squeezed her hand. I will be fine. It is you I worry about. That schoolhouse is too cold. We manage. The children are tough, tougher than I expected, she smiled. They teach me things every day about resilience and courage. Like their teacher, Nathan said softly. Christmas brought a brief respite from the harsh weather. The town held a pageant at the church, with the schoolchildren performing a nativity play that Zara had directed. Little Timmy Cole played a shepherd and forgot half his lines, but his earnest face and gap-toothed smile charmed everyone. Emma Sanders sang a solo that brought tears to many eyes. Nathan sat in the front row, beaming with pride, and afterward told Zara it was the finest performance he had ever seen. On Christmas morning, Nathan came to the hotel with a gift. It was a wooden box he had made himself, polished smooth and inlaid with a pattern of stars. Inside was a silver locket on a delicate chain. "I know it is not much," Nathan said as Zara held it up to the light, "but I wanted you to have something beautiful, something that would remind you that you are valued and loved." "It is perfect," Zara said, her eyes filling with tears. "I love it." "I love you." She gave him a scarf she had knitted herself, working on it secretly during the long evenings in her room. The stitches were not perfect, but Nathan wrapped it around his neck immediately and said he would treasure it always. The new year of 1884 brought more snow and bitter cold. In late January, a blizzard struck Sierra City with terrifying force. The wind howled like a living thing, and snow piled up against buildings until some of the doors could not be opened. School was canceled for a week, and people stayed inside, venturing out only to care for animals or get supplies. Zara spent the days in her small hotel room, reading and worrying about Nathan. There was no way to communicate with his ranch, no way to know if he was safe. She stared out her frosted window at the white world beyond and prayed. When the storm finally passed, Nathan was one of the first people to make it back to town. He was covered in snow, his face hidden behind ice-crusted whiskers, but he was alive. Zara saw him from her window and ran downstairs, propriety forgotten, and threw herself into his arms. "I was so scared," she said, her voice muffled against his frozen coat. "I thought something had happened to you." "I am fine," Nathan said, holding her tight. "We lost a few head of cattle, but the men and I are all right. I had to come check on you to make sure you were safe." "I am safe," Zara said. "But I cannot do this anymore, Nathan. I cannot spend days worrying about you, wondering if you are alive or frozen somewhere. I cannot be apart from you." Nathan pulled back to look at her face. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I want to be your wife." "I do not care if people think it is too soon. I do not care about anything except being with you." Nathan's face broke into a smile. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have been carrying this around for 2 months, waiting for the right moment. I think this is it." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. "Zara Mitchell, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner, share my home and my life, and help me build something lasting?" "Yes," Zara said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I will marry you." Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and then he kissed her, right there on the main street of Sierra City, with half the town watching through their windows. It was not a proper thing to do, but Zara did not care. She kissed him back with all the love and hope and joy in her heart. They were married 6 weeks later in early March, in the little church with the crooked steeple. Reverend Cole performed the ceremony, and Mrs. Cole stood up as Zara's matron of honor. Most of the town attended, even Martha Henderson, though her smile was thin. Zara wore a simple blue dress that Mrs. Cole had helped her sew, and Nathan wore his best suit with the scarf Zara had given him for Christmas. When Reverend Cole pronounced them husband and wife, and Nathan kissed his bride, Zara felt like her life was finally, truly beginning. All the pain and humiliation of Philadelphia seemed far away, like something that had happened to a different person in a different lifetime. After a small reception at the hotel, Nathan took Zara home to his ranch. Their ranch now, she corrected herself. As they rode up the long drive, snow still covering the ground but the first hints of spring in the air, Zara felt a sense of peace settle over her. "Welcome home, Mrs. Rhodes," Nathan said as he helped her down from the wagon. "It feels strange to be called that," Zara admitted. "But wonderful too." Nathan carried her over the threshold, laughing at her protests, and set her down in the middle of the sitting room. "There, now it is official." The ranch hands had made themselves scarce, leaving the newlyweds alone for their first night. Nathan built up the fire while Zara explored her new home, touching the furniture, looking at the books on the shelves, imagining how she would arrange things. Her things. Their things. That night, as they lay together in Nathan's bed, now their bed, Zara felt safe in a way she never had before. Nathan held her gently, reverently, making love to her with such tenderness that she wept. This was what it was supposed to be like, she realized. This joining, this intimacy, this sense of being cherished and known. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Nathan replied. "And I promise you, Zara, I will spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you know it." Adjusting to ranch life was not easy. Zara was used to the rhythms of the schoolhouse and the town, not the constant demands of cattle and horses and land. She learned to cook for 5 people instead of 1, making hearty meals for Nathan and his ranch hands. She learned to tend the chickens and gather eggs, to preserve vegetables and churn butter, to mend clothes and make soap. Her hands, once soft and used only for writing and turning pages, became calloused and strong. The ranch hands were respectful but cautious at first, unsure how to interact with the boss's wife. Pete was the oldest, a grizzled cowboy who had been with Nathan since the beginning. Jim was quieter, a man of few words but steady work. Carlos was just 20, eager and hardworking, sending most of his wages back to his family in Mexico. Zara won them over slowly, learning their preferences for meals, asking about their lives, treating them with the same respect Nathan did. She made sure there were always cookies in the jar and that their clothes were mended. When Carlos received word that his mother was ill, she helped him write a letter in Spanish, working from a dictionary and her knowledge of Latin. "You are good for this place," Pete told her one evening as she served dinner. "Boss is happier than I have ever seen him, and that makes all of us happier too." Spring came slowly to the high desert, but when it arrived, it was glorious. The hills turned green almost overnight, wildflowers blooming in carpets of gold and purple. Zara rode out with Nathan to check on the cattle, learning to sit a horse properly and to appreciate the vast beauty of the land. She began to understand what Nathan loved about ranching, the connection to the earth and the animals, the satisfaction of seeing new calves being born and the grass growing thick. In May, Zara realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but waited to be sure before telling Nathan. When she finally shared the news one evening after dinner, he swept her into his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. "We are going to have a baby," he kept saying, as if he could not quite believe it. "You are going to be a mother." "And you are going to be a father," Zara said, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Are you ready for that?" "I do not know if anyone is ever really ready," Nathan admitted, "but I cannot wait to find out." The pregnancy was easier than Zara had feared. She had morning sickness for the first few months, but it passed, and by summer she felt energetic and healthy. Her body changed, growing round with their child, and Nathan treated her like she was made of glass. "I am pregnant, not broken," she protested when he tried to take over all her chores. "I need to stay active. I just want you safe," Nathan said. "You and the baby. We are safe," Zara assured him. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I will be fine." In August, Nathan hired a woman from town, Mrs. Baker, to come stay at the ranch as Zara's confinement approached. Mrs. Baker was a stout, practical woman who had delivered dozens of babies in her years as a midwife. She examined Zara and pronounced her healthy and strong. "You should have an easy time of it," she predicted. "First babies can take a while, but you have good hips and you are young and strong." Zara hoped she was right. She had heard horror stories about childbirth, women who labored for days or died in the process. But she tried not to dwell on the fear. focusing instead on preparing for the baby's arrival. She and Nathan converted the smaller upstairs bedroom into a nursery, and Zara sewed tiny clothes and blankets. Nathan built a cradle that rocked smoothly on curved runners, sanding it until it was silky smooth and carving their initials into the headboard. The baby came in late September, on a cool evening when the first hint of fall was in the air. Zara's labor started in the afternoon, gentle at first, and she walked around the house with Nathan hovering anxiously. Mrs. Baker arrived at dusk and shooed Nathan out of the bedroom. "This is women's work," she said firmly. "You go downstairs and let us handle this." The labor intensified through the night. Zara had never experienced pain like this, wave after wave that seemed to crack her open. But Mrs. Baker was calm and competent, coaching her through each contraction, wiping her face with a cool cloth, telling her she was doing well. "I can see the head," Mrs. Baker announced in the early hours of morning. "Just a few more pushes, dear. You are almost there." Zara pushed with everything she had, screaming through the pain, and then suddenly the pressure released and a baby's cry filled the room. Mrs. Baker lifted up a red-faced, squalling infant. "It is a boy," she announced. "A healthy, beautiful boy." She cleaned the baby quickly and placed him in Zara's arms. He was perfect, with a cap of dark hair and tiny fingers that curled around hers. Zara started crying, overwhelmed by love so fierce it took her breath away. Nathan burst into the room moments later, his face pale with worry. "I heard screaming. Is everyone all right? Meet your son," Zara said, smiling through her tears. Nathan approached the bed slowly, as if afraid he might break something. He looked down at the baby in Zara's arms and his expression transformed. "He is perfect," he whispered. "You are perfect." They named him Nathan Rhodes, and he became the center of their world. Nathan was a devoted father, staying up with Zara during the night feedings, walking the floor with Noah when he cried, staring at him for hours as if he could not quite believe this small person was his. The first year of Noah's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and small miracles. His first smile, his first laugh, his first tooth. Zara had never been so exhausted or so happy. The ranch thrived under Nathan's management, and they hired a fourth ranch hand to help with the growing herd. When Noah was 18 months old, Zara discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was harder. She was tired all the time, and the morning sickness lasted longer. But in the spring of 1886, she gave birth to a daughter they named Naomi. She had Zara's dark hair and Nathan's gray eyes, and she was as different from Noah as could be. Where Noah had been a calm baby, Naomi was fierce, crying loudly and demanding attention. "She knows what she wants," Nathan said admiringly as he walked the floor with her one night. "Just like her mother." Life on the ranch settled into a rhythm. The children grew, learning to walk and talk and explore their world. Noah was quiet and thoughtful, happiest when he was following his father around the ranch or sitting with a book. Naomi was wild and fearless, climbing trees and chasing chickens and generally keeping everyone on their toes. Zara found fulfillment in motherhood and in being a rancher's wife, but she missed teaching. When Noah was 4, she started inviting the ranch hands' families to bring their children to the ranch once a week for lessons. It started with just Carlos's nephew, but soon other families heard about it and began sending their children too. Within a year, Zara had a small school operating out of the ranch's dining room every Saturday morning. Nathan supported her fully, helping her get supplies and even building a small schoolhouse on the ranch property. "You have a gift for teaching," he said. "The children need you." By 1890, Zara was teaching 12 children every week, a mix of ranch kids and children from Mexican families who lived in the area. She taught them reading and writing and arithmetic, but also Spanish and English for those who needed it, and practical skills like gardening and animal husbandry. It was deeply satisfying work, bridging the gap between different communities and giving children opportunities they might not otherwise have had. Noah started helping with ranch work when he was 8, following his father everywhere and learning the business. Naomi showed more interest in her mother's teaching, often sitting in on the Saturday lessons and helping the younger children with their reading. When she was 10, she announced she wanted to be a teacher like her mother. "Then you will need to study hard," Zara told her. "Teaching is important work, and you have to know a lot to do it well." The years brought challenges as well as joys. There were harsh winters when they lost cattle, dry summers when the grass withered and they had to haul water for the herds. There were accidents, like when Jim broke his leg and was laid up for months, and illnesses that swept through the ranch, leaving everyone weak and exhausted. There were financial worries when cattle prices dropped and they had to tighten their belts. But through it all, Zara and Nathan held fast to each other. They made decisions together, talked through problems together, celebrated victories together. Their love deepened with the years, becoming something solid and unshakable, the foundation on which they built their life. When Noah turned 16 in 1900, he told his parents he wanted to go to college. "I love the ranch," he said, "but I want to learn about modern ranching techniques, about business and science. I want to come back and help make this place even better." It was a bittersweet moment for Zara and Nathan, proud of their son's ambition, but sad at the thought of him leaving. They scraped together the money to send him to the agricultural college in Reno, and the house felt emptier without his quiet presence. Naomi, now 14, threw herself into helping her mother with the school. She was a natural teacher, patient and creative, coming up with games and songs to help the younger children learn. Zara watched her daughter with pride and a little sadness, knowing that she too would likely leave one day to pursue her dreams. As Zara approached her 40th birthday, she sometimes thought back on the frightened young woman who had arrived in Sierra City all those years ago. That woman seemed like a stranger now, someone from another life. She had built a real life here, a life of purpose and love and belonging. She had a husband who cherished her, children she adored, work that mattered. She had friends in town and throughout the valley, people who respected her and valued her contributions. One evening in the summer of 1901, she and Nathan sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains pink and gold. Their hands were clasped together and they sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from decades of knowing someone. "Do you ever regret it?" Nathan asked suddenly. "Leaving Philadelphia, coming west?" "Never," Zara said firmly. "That life was not real. This is real. This is where I was always meant to be." "I am glad," Nathan said. "I cannot imagine my life without you. You made everything better, richer, more meaningful." "You gave me a beginning beyond imagination," Zara said, squeezing his hand. "I came here searching for a fresh start, and you gave me a whole new life. You gave me love and purpose and a home. You gave me everything." Nathan turned to look at her, and she saw the same love in his eyes that had been there on their wedding day, only deeper now, weathered and tested by time. "We gave each other everything. That is what partnership means." Noah graduated from college in 1904 and returned to the ranch with new ideas and boundless energy. He implemented rotational grazing systems, bred the cattle more selectively, and began keeping detailed records of everything. The ranch became even more profitable, and Nathan joked that his son was turning him into a modern man. Naomi went to teachers' college in Carson City, and returned 2 years later to take over the ranch school full-time. She expanded it, adding more days and more subjects, until it was operating almost like a regular school. Children came from miles away to attend, and Naomi's reputation as a gifted teacher spread throughout the region. In 1907, Noah married a sweet girl named Sarah who he had met at college. She fit into the ranch family easily, learning from Zara and becoming like a daughter to her. A year later, they gave Zara and Nathan their first grandchild, a boy named after Nathan. Zara held her grandson and thought about the circle of life, about how love and family continued through the generations. Naomi married in 1909 to a young lawyer from Sierra City who shared her passion for education and social justice. They built a house in town but visited the ranch often, and Naomi continued running the school with her husband's full support. As Nathan and Zara moved into their 60s, they gradually turned over more of the ranch operations to Noah, though Nathan still worked cattle and Zara still taught occasionally when Naomi needed help. They had more time to enjoy each other's company, to travel a little, to visit their children and grandchildren. On their 30th wedding anniversary in 1914, Nathan took Zara on a trip to San Francisco. It was her first time seeing the ocean, and she stood on the beach with tears running down her face, overwhelmed by the vastness of it. "I never thought I would see this," she said. "Never thought I would have the chance to see so much of the world." "We will see more," Nathan promised. "We have time. We have all the time in the world." But time, as it turned out, was more limited than they hoped. In the winter of 1916, Nathan caught pneumonia. He had been out in a blizzard checking on cattle, and by the time he made it home, he was feverish and coughing. Despite Zara's care and the doctor's best efforts, the infection settled deep in his lungs. For 2 weeks, Zara barely left his bedside. She bathed his fevered face, held his hand, talked to him when he was lucid, and prayed when he was not. Noah and Naomi came home, gathering around their father's bed with their own children, and the house that had seen so much life and love felt heavy with the weight of impending loss. Nathan rallied briefly, seeming to improve, and Zara allowed herself to hope. But on a cold February night, his breathing became labored and his fever spiked. Zara lay beside him on the bed, holding him in her arms. "I am so sorry," Nathan whispered. "I promised you a lifetime." "You gave me a lifetime," Zara said through her tears. "You gave me everything that matters." "I have no regrets, my love, none at all." "Take care of the ranch," Nathan said. "Take care of our family, take care of yourself." "I will," Zara promised. "But you have to fight. You have to stay with me." Nathan smiled, the same smile that had made her heart flutter 32 years ago. "I will always be with you. Always." He died just before dawn, peacefully in the arms of the woman he loved. Zara held him as the light broke over the mountains, as the world woke up to a day that he would not see. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Thank you for everything." The grief was crushing. Zara moved through the days in a fog, going through the motions of living but feeling hollow inside. The ranch felt empty without Nathan's presence, without his voice and his laughter and his steady strength. But she could not fall apart. She had children and grandchildren who needed her, a ranch that needed managing, a school that needed supporting. Noah took over the ranch operations fully, and he did it with the same dedication and care his father had shown. Zara remained involved, offering advice when asked, but mostly she focused on her grandchildren, teaching them to read and telling them stories about their grandfather. Slowly, painfully, life continued. Zara discovered that grief did not disappear, but it changed, becoming something she could carry rather than something that crushed her. She found moments of joy again, in watching her grandchildren grow, in seeing the ranch thrive under Noah's management, in teaching children who looked at her with the same wonder she had once seen in her own students. She lived for another 12 years after Nathan's death, dying peacefully in her sleep in 1928 at the age of 70. Her children and grandchildren surrounded her in her final days, and she told them all the stories one more time, about coming to Sierra City as a frightened young woman, about meeting the rancher who changed her life, about building something lasting from nothing but love and determination. "Your grandfather gave me the courage to be myself," she told them. "He showed me that the past does not define you, that you can always start over, that love is the most powerful force in the world. Remember that. Hold on to that." On the morning she died, the family gathered in the cemetery on a hill overlooking the ranch. They buried her next to Nathan, their headstones side by side, marking the graves of two people who had found each other against the odds and built a legacy that would endure for generations. Noah stood with his arm around his sister, both of them gray-haired now with children of their own. "They had a good life," Naomi said. "They loved each other so much." "They did," Noah agreed. "And because of that love, look at what they built. This ranch, this family, this community. All of it started because a scared woman took a chance on coming west, and a lonely man took a chance on love." Sarah, Noah's wife, laid flowers on both graves. "It is a beautiful love story, the kind people will tell for years to come." And they did. In the years that followed, as the ranch passed down through the generations, as the school Naomi had run became a proper schoolhouse, and then a modern elementary school, as Sierra City grew from a frontier town into a small but thriving community, people remembered Nathan and Zara Rhodes. They remembered the rancher who had seen a woman in need and offered her not just a job or a home, but a partnership and a love that transformed both their lives. They remembered the teacher who had come west running from scandal and found her true calling. They remembered the couple who had built something lasting, not just in land and buildings, but in family and love and community. The ranch house still stood, expanded and modernized, but with the original log structure at its heart. In the dining room where Zara had once taught students every Saturday, there hung a photograph of her and Nathan, taken on their 20th wedding anniversary. In it, they were standing in front of the barn, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera with the easy confidence of two people who knew they were exactly where they belonged. Below the photograph was a brass plaque that Noah had commissioned, engraved with words that summed up their legacy. Nathan and Zara Rhodes, 1851–1916 and 1858–1928. They came to this land searching for a fresh start and built a beginning beyond imagination. Their love endures in all of us. And it did endure in the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carried their blood and their values, in the ranch that still raised cattle and horses and crops, in the community they had helped build, where people of different backgrounds worked together and supported each other, in the countless students who had learned to read and write and dream in schools that traced their lineage back to a small classroom in a frontier ranch house. Zara Mitchell had arrived in Sierra City, Nevada in the summer of 1883 with nothing but a carpetbag and a broken heart, searching for a place where her past did not matter and her future could be her own. Nathan Rhodes had been running his ranch alone, building something solid but longing for someone to share it with. When they found each other, two incomplete lives became one extraordinary story. Their love had been tested by hardship and loss, by the harsh realities of frontier life, by illness and financial struggles, and all the challenges that come with building a life from scratch. But it had endured, deepened, and ultimately triumphed, creating a legacy that went far beyond what either of them could have imagined when they first shook hands in a dusty schoolhouse. In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the scandal that drove Zara west, not the loneliness that marked Nathan's early years, but what they built together. A ranch that prospered, a family that flourished, a love that lasted beyond death, living on in the memories and lives of everyone they touched. Decades later, when Noah himself was an old man, he would sit on that same porch where his parents had watched so many sunsets and tell his own grandchildren the story. He would tell them about the schoolteacher who came to town with nothing and the rancher who saw past her pain to the strong woman beneath. He would tell them about a love that was patient and kind, that endured all things and never failed. That is the kind of love you should look for, he would tell them. Not the easy, comfortable kind, but the kind that challenges you to be better, to build something meaningful, to leave the world a little better than you found it. That is what your great-grandparents did. They came to this wild land with nothing but hope and determination, and they created all of this. He would gesture to the thriving ranch, the happy family gathered around him, the rich life that was their inheritance. And those grandchildren would grow up and tell the story to their own children, keeping alive the memory of Nathan and Zara Rhodes, the rancher and the schoolteacher who found love in the unlikeliest of places and built a beginning beyond imagination. Their story became part of the land itself, woven into the history of Sierra City and the Nevada frontier, a testament to the transformative power of love and the endless possibilities of fresh starts. The Wild West had been their crucible and their canvas, the place where they shed their old selves and became something new, where a disgraced socialite became a respected teacher and rancher's wife, where a solitary cattleman became a devoted husband and father, where two wounded souls found healing in each other's arms, and though they were long gone, their love remained, as permanent and enduring as the mountains that watched over the ranch they had built together, as vast and limitless as the Nevada sky that stretched above the land they had called home. It was a love story for the ages, simple in its telling but profound in its impact, a reminder that no matter how dark the past or uncertain the future, love can light the way forward and create beginnings beyond imagination.